Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. Text us 865-658-5824. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. We got Emilio in Tennessee, still rocking the flag back there. I see you, sir. Jacob said he had just enough time to get home and change into a fun shirt. Jacob, you want to explain to the crowd what you meant by that?
I mean, Emilio knows what I'm talking about. I guarantee you. Stand up, Emilio. Yeah, I haven't even looked at what he's wearing today. I guarantee
you. Be careful here. Be careful.
That's a fun. See, that's a fun shirt.
Yeah, that's a fun shirt. You're right.
I got, I think, at Disneyland when I was like.
I know. I was thinking, Jacob, please don't tell him to do this.
We got a clean one.
I got a fun shirt on, but I just noticed it. It really is giving off some like Epstein Island type weird symbology. I didn't mean for that. Easy, Eric.
Easy in the chat. Goodness gracious.
We're not even a minute in. That was a rough start.
Off to a roaring start here, man. I'll tell
Brought to you by Ticket King.
Glad we did that prep. Yeah.
You know what? Let's hold off on the advertisement tonight or the sponsorship this evening. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. How about that? Just play it safe.
Fine.
But anyway, obviously here to talk some Packers tonight. I had a question from a user, a listener, whatever you want to say, a listener, I guess. They actually reached out and asked about Josh Jacobs. So I thought, you know what? We got a little bit of downtime. Why don't we dive into a little running game talk? And we could talk a little scheme. But more importantly, we're going to talk kind of comparison. We're going to compare Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs. And really, we'll get right to the question here. Before we do, does anybody in here have anything they want to hit on right off the bat? I want to ask you guys that, because when I get into my topics, obviously we get real deep, and I don't want to, kind of steal anybody's thunder or cut you guys off if there is something like, hey, this is at the forefront of my mind.
I got something that we can just quickly gloss over if you'd like.
Okay. Nothing to do with an island, though, right?
No. This is actual real stuff here. This morning, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to Ryan's podcast, the Packernet flagship podcast, but he had a couple different segments and eventually ended up taking some callers. But if you listen to, I believe it's the second segment, he dives into some really deep analytics and stats from SIS, I believe, and some other organizations that basically measure the strength of schedule, but they do it in a way where it's not just what your opponents, what their schedule is either had been, or what their ranking was, or what their wins and losses record is either projected or what it was, or even what their defense or their offense is ranked. It more measures it in measures of like, they call it, it was like sleep days or off days, basically. Time traveled, distances traveled, whether or not you have a cold. They call it like a shock weather game, where basically you go from one extreme climate to another. There was one where, again, if you had to travel overseas, there was one that was extended drive time, extended fly time. That metric in place, not talking about, again, the strength of where the opponents are actually measured as far as how they play, but as far as the season, how it's lined out, where our bye is, where our breaks are in between our primetime games. The Packers have the easiest schedule of anyone since like 1990s. So it's a really cool episode. You should check it out.
I'll definitely check that out. That's good news, right, Emilio? I mean, we'll take anything we can get at the NFL level, man.
Yeah, we'll take every little bit we can get. But no, I didn't get a chance to listen to it. I actually got listening to some Move the Sticks and a little bit of GM Shuffle. They were talking, I think Move the Sticks was talking about Jordan Love, which was cool. And then GM Shuffle was talking about blue chip, red chip, and he had X at a red chip player.
Nice.
So
the way that works too, correct me if I'm wrong, blue chip is like the elite and red chip is that second tier, right?
Right. Yep.
And you guys will hear me talk about those type of players, and I'll say tier 1, tier 2, right? So same thing.
Yep. But for the corners, nobody I think Sauce was up there obviously, which I didn't make it for corners, but we did have X there. For a red chip. I like it. I'll take it. Like we said, we'll take a little bit of everything, but that secondary is going to be wild.
Yeah. So did he just hit blue chip, red chip on the secondary? Was that all it was?
Correct. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Because they're going to be moving through the rest of them, I think.
Stupid comment by me, like always. But wasn't there a movie called like Blue Chips with Shaq and like Nick Nolte or something? And it was awesome. I was a core memory unlocked. Thank you, Emilio.
You're welcome.
You know,
I'll be here all week.
That's what people tune in for right here. That's the type of stuff they tune in for. So, yeah, that was a high school / college basketball movie, right? About Shaquille O'Neal playing himself pretty much. Not playing with himself, but playing himself. And, so Nick Nolte, I think, was he the coach or the agent? What was he? You remember?
I thought he was the coach. It's been a long time.
Yeah, been a long time. You're right. So, all right. Good stuff. So we got a little basketball talk in too. We're off to a roaring start. I love it. I need to listen to that GM shuffle though. Amelia, I fell behind today.
Yeah. No, it was a good one. And even on Move the Sticks, DJ and Buck were talking about. I believe they were talking about how Jordan Love. A guy was asking him, can he kind of be who he was in the second half of the year, sort of thing. If we like a clip of it, we can drop it in here. But I mean, they're excited, right? But they also said, it's hard to be at that. It's hard to be at that elite level for an entire 18 game season. And how does he come back after finishing that strong? So it's all just wait and see, man. We're getting to that point of we just need a little bit more info, and I think training camp will shed some light on it.
Right. Well, this kind of plays into the same types. I was sitting there thinking, I wonder if there's any news at all, any tips at all on the Jordan Love contract situation. It sounds like it's went really, really quiet. But did you guys see the Tay Adams news come across the wire about the details of his falling out with the Packers? So if you guys and gals have been listening to the show for a while now, I kind of broke it down, and I was definitely in the minority when it happened because I don't want to say everyone, a good chunk of the fan base were saying, hey, look, they offered Tay, the same amount, and he chose to go to Vegas. He made that decision, right? But what as many people will do when they're on one side of the fence or the other, they'll leave out key details. And the key detail there was when Tay was looking for a contract extension in 2021, they came in and they lowballed him. And one thing that I reported on this podcast was it was confirmed by Davante Adams, and we played the soundbite from a podcast he was on, that they came in underneath $20 million per. And that was just crazy because the wide receiver market was just absolutely nuts at the time. So when he said under $20 million, I thought it's probably 19.5. You know what I mean? Well, it came out today. I've actually got the screen grab here. Eli tweeted this out and said, and this is from a video from that All Facts, No Breaks there. I think it was Keyshawn Johnson that was interviewing Tay Adams and Davante Adams. And basically it says Davante Adams gives us a sneak peek inside his departure from Green Bay. And this is the quote from it. It said, quote, "Pay me right now, and we don't need to worry about Aaron leaving. It's up to J Love if Aaron is out of there. So basically, many other people were saying he didn't want to play with Jordan Love. That wasn't the case either. So he actually went to them and told them, I don't care who the quarterback is. You pay me what the market is saying, and I'm staying, basically, right? So they made an offer, and the offer was actually $17 million per. So they came in $3 million shy per year on average of the $20 million when other guys were getting like $25 million. It was something crazy. And he was obviously the best receiver in the game at the time. So I thought that was kind of noteworthy today that came out. And some people are going, why are you even talking about this, Clayton? Because I'm starting to get scared. We got this Jordan Love contract sitting out here, and I'm going, are they doing the same thing to Jordan that they did to Tay? And at what point does Jordan Love go, you know what? Screw this. I'm not coming to camp. I don't think he'll do that. I think he's doing everything he can to be kind of this team player. But at the same time, man, I'm not going to BS you guys. I've got too much respect for our listeners and co-hosts and everybody that we chat with on a daily basis. That makes me a little nervous, man, because I was expecting 19. And some people are probably going, what the hell is $2.5 million, Clayton? If it was 19.5, 17 ain't that much worse. Actually, it is. You're saying to the best player at his position, hey, look, I don't care what you want. Here's what we think you're worth. Ticked him off, ran him off, and then immediately everything got spun as, well, Davante Adams don't want to play with Aaron Rodgers. And we remember how that all went. And that's why Aaron went scorched earth in that presser, obviously. But you guys want to add anything to that? I just thought it was interesting that the details actually came out. As Eli said, the Packers offered him $17 million a year, which would have been the 20th in the NFL at the time. So he would have been the 20th highest paid receiver per year average. So, you guys got any thoughts on that?
It is a little bit hard. It's hard to spin it. I'll be honest. It's hard to spin it because in my head, I started thinking, well, what if they really knew that they had the future at the position locked down, but at the time they didn't?
Right.
Even if they thought, even if you could argue that they had some guys on their like draft board that they thought could, that's such a leap to think you could just make that happen. At the same time, you know that there's about to be a quarterback carousel at the same time. I don't know. I think that Goody maybe rolled the dice and ended up being a cheapo like me. He went to Ross, he went to Marshall's, and he ended up finding 4 or 5 bargain busters in that clearance bin, and now he looks like a genius. But if that weren't the case, if that weren't the case, then all of a sudden you go from Ross and Marshall's to sitting on the corner begging for some change. So
like this right here, Jacob. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It would be it'd be like, I mean, I would lowball them too. If you're buying, I mean, our devil's advocate, if you're buying something and Clayton's offering me 20 million, I'm gonna hit him at 12 and work him down for sure. I mean, there's no way we're gonna start at that same number. But man,
you just described the art of the deal, my buddy.
I know, and obviously, it hurts Tay because you have to lowball him to get that number, to get it moving. But yeah, I mean, best wide receiver in the league at the time. But hey, maybe that was the move. If we decided that we're gonna build from the trenches and we want to pay a quarterback, all right, we gotta put blinders on to the outside skill players and kind of wait. We already paid Josh, so we can't go back on that. We got to get Rashawn squared away, and then just kind of refocus our attention. And maybe it wasn't at the time, wide receiver.
Have you guys heard about it was George Kittle's comment and apparently the new receiver show, which I haven't seen, but I've heard is pretty cool. It shows you different insights. He talked about how it was somebody asked him about Brandon Ayuk's contract and Debo and how they're going to keep them both. And if they worry about it, and what's your contract? Does anybody come to you for advice? And George Kittle says, yeah, don't talk to your agent at all. Let him do all the work. Don't even worry about it. He goes, I go so far as to when anybody asks me if I know anything about the contract, I tell them no, so that they stop asking me anything more about contracts. He goes, I'm here to play football. I let my agent sort out that stuff, and then it doesn't bleed into the locker room. And I thought that was a really cool way to do it. But at the same time, it's your money. So I understand where Devontae's coming from, especially when you're at the pinnacle of your career, Yeah.
And we've got a lot of different viewpoints on this type of topic because, you said that was Kittle that said that, Jacob. Is that right? Yeah. So he's saying, hey, look, let the agent handle it. I ain't even going to look at it, right? Well, you go to Pittsburgh and TJ Watt, they couldn't get a deal worked out. And what did he do? He basically told the agent, he got fed up, and he was in training camp, but he was a hold in. He told the agent, shut the hell up. And he went upstairs and talked to management, and they got the deal done within minutes, right? So you've got that aspect too. And I'm kind of waiting for Jordan to do that, although, again, that's why I can't blame him if he doesn't. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing, too. Like, Goody's kind of painted himself into a corner, not from a leverage standpoint, but just the comments he's made. He's like, we knew this all along. We knew he was this good since 2019. He's like, and then it comes time to pay him, and he's like, we don't know if he's worth that much. Yeah. So you're kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth there a bit. Now, I will say, as Mike Berry said, 17 first offer. That was not the first offer. No, sir. That was confirmed. That was – When it got down to the nitty gritty, and Tay actually called them. Tay said he was on the phone with them and said, "Look, I don't care about the uncertainty of Aaron and all this other stuff. Let's get this thing done." And the offer they made was $17 million. He said he went click, like, okay, you're going to disrespect me. And essentially, what they were trying to do. Now let's look at it from the Packers standpoint. The Packers are looking at it, going, "We could franchise tag you," and they tried to, right? Tay didn't sign it, and Tay was hell-bent on, I ain't signing that. I ain't doing it, right? Yeah. So, to the best of my knowledge, Mike, that was not the first offer. Now, this is the part right here. Michael, this is no way, shape, or form is a personal shot at you, but I was about to talk about this, and then I seen your comment, and this I'm not mad at you, okay? Please don't take this the wrong way. But this does irk me when people come with this type of angle. He says, what you're missing, Clayton, is that Goody was ready to move on and wanted assets. Time out. Goody offered more money than the Raiders in the final offer. So what it shows you is he lowballed the hell out of Tay, $17 million per. Tay said, "Screw you, I'm done negotiating. I ain't even answering your calls anymore." Then they said, "Okay, we're going to franchise tag you." He said, "I ain't showing up if you franchise tag me." Then they came back and made a bigger offer than what the Raiders ended up giving Tay after the trade. Okay, so he called their bluff. That comment right there is simply not true. Goody didn't go, "Hey, I want to move on." Goody was willing to pay him more than the Raiders were. That's common knowledge now that came out. So again, it's not a shot at you. It's just the majority of the time that is the comment that Packers fans make is like, "Oh, well, no, Goody knew what he was doing, It looks great now. Like you hit the nail on the head, Jacob. Like Emilio, we crushed it. Like we being Goody, not us. We weren't in there. I mean, we didn't do none of the work or the scouting, but this receiver room is looking great. Hindsight's 2020. But again, I'm looking at this to the Jordan Love contract kind of standpoint. Like, I'm getting a little shaky here.
Right. And like to that point, we've gotten extremely lucky with the fact that we've had talent come out quickly in the draft. So we had to wait for Davante Adams to even become Davante Adams. We had to wait we had to wait his whole rookie contract for him to even become something. So the fact that these rookies are already something is, a blessing. We're lucky with that. But again, we would be in the Vikings situation right now. But on top of that, also have to pay a quarterback, not just have one fresh out of the draft. I mean, they pay darn, but fresh out of the draft. So would we want to be in the Vikings situation right now? I think it probably happened for a reason, right? It was meant to be that we needed a new influx of wide receivers and tight ends and we just needed a flush of our skill positions, basically. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened.
Do you think it's fair to say too, to Michael's Redden's point there, that I think maybe just the point in the timeline is where we argue, because I think that once the Tay Adams stuff, once the poo hit the fan and then the Rodgers stuff snowballed, then at that point, I agree. Goody was like, "All right, I'm going to get rid of as many guys as I can for whatever I can. Lazard, give me some. Cobb, Mercedes."
It feels like Michael Scott. Michael Scott pissed off the whole office, and he's like, "Burn the building to the ground. Let's just start."
He goes to the gas station. "Do you think 12 bottles of vodka will get 10?"
Because that should be a good start.
Exactly. Chris Nick was in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. He says 17 million is pure disrespect. Yeah, I was expecting, like the way he said south of 20 mil. I was thinking it's probably 19.5, 19.2, something like that. When they said 17, I went, I can't. It's hard for me to defend Goody on this one, And who knows what they could have actually gotten him for at that time. But after that, obviously things changed big time. Michael Reagan goes on to say, so is it bad negotiations, or was Goody shamed or pressured to match the offer? See, that's the other thing, Michael. I'm glad you bring that up. Sure. The way that the structure of the Packers is in place. I had a comment on our YouTube video the other day where a guy said, Goody doesn't do the contracts, Russ Ball does, as if Goody doesn't have any say in what, that's not, that is not how that works, right? Russ Ball handles the contracts. Yes, sir. He handles all of the details, all of the fine print, all the bonus, the structure, all that. And I think he's great at his job and what he does. But if you come, not you, Michael, but the other guy that made this comment, if you come with that angle and say, no, Goody has no say in the contracts, you got to go, okay, so that means Russ Ball has the end say in whether you sign someone or not. That's essentially what we're saying. And that is not the case. That is not the case at all. So what I was getting at, though, is maybe he did get pressure from Mark Murphy, right? Mark Murphy's like, hey, look, let's get this done. Let's get this done. So maybe that pushed it over. So us not being in the front office, we don't know for sure. But that's a possibility. I'm not ruling that out, right?
Right. So, but at least the conversations that our GM and staff are having are a lot more to the point, and we have a direction than what we're seeing on Hard Knocks, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm happy that we are a Packers fan because we at least have what is Lombardi called it? At least we have a compass, right? We know what direction we want to be heading. We know where our philosophy is, and I'm just glad that they follow through on that.
Yeah. Greg Rice says, Michael, for what it's worth, I am mad at you, smiling or winking emoji. So there you go. And then Michael said, or to save face. Could have been a little bit of that too. Like it could have been, hey, I know he's not going to sign with us now, so let's go ahead and get that report out there that, hey, I tried to match the Raiders offer, because that definitely took a lot of heat off of him in the exit, right? And I thought Tay handled it with class too. Like Tay was just like, hey, man, it is what it is. And he went over to play with his college quarterback. And his college quarterback got kicked to the
yeah. Oh, that was, I forgot about that dynamic too.
I mean, what was worse, what we did to Tay, or what they did to?
Oh, what they did to Carr, bro. That was that was Goodfellas stuff. Walking Jimmy Burke into the room. That's what that was. Absolutely. And then Tay's left sitting there like they probably handed Tay a towel and said, clean up this mess. You know what I mean?
Crazy. Do you guys think it's a fair point, like Russ or like Ron just said about Russ? Immediately what popped in my head when they asked if Russ has any, negotiations or input in the contracts, I'd probably say no, but what it reminds me of the best movie, obviously, of all time, Draft Day, when Kevin Costner looks up over at Jennifer Gardner and he's like, I want to make this move. Can we afford it? And she basically is like, yeah, we got to move some stuff around. Maybe that's like the dynamic is, hey, if I do this, is this going to work? Is this going to crush us in 2 or 3 years? Or
again, Russ Ball is essentially like, to draw a parallel with that movie. And I know the movie is quirky. It's cheesy. Yeah. It's a little love story tied into the football, story, but that's essentially what Russ Ball's job is he's a capologist, right? He's the guy who's kind of working the numbers and making and structuring in a way. And I'm sure he's going to Goody going, hey, you want this front loaded, back loaded? What are we thinking here? Right. And then in conjunction, he's probably the main one talking to the agent. And Russ Ball is reporting to Goody going, here's where they're at. Here's where we're at. How do you feel about it type thing? Right. So I'm not saying that Russ Ball doesn't handle any of the negotiation. It's just, again, it was one listener that was like, made it sound as if Goody has no say whatsoever. And it's like, that's the farthest thing from the truth there. So let's see here what else we got. Greg Rice says, what do we know about Jones's contract negotiations? Was it basically the same lowballing by wanting him to take a pay cut and he walked? See, he had already taken a pay cut and they asked him to take another pay cut and he was willing to do that, but it got to the point. Now here, I've heard 2 different stories, so I don't know exactly how it ended up, but I heard that the Vikings ended up paying him $1 million more than the Packers were willing to go for a 1-year deal. Okay. Now, if that's the case, again, I feel like Goody's kind of, he's taking it on the chin there. I heard someone else say it was $3 million. It was actually $3 million. Now, we don't know the exact number that the Packers' final offer was. There was 2 different conflicting articles that I read where one said 1, the other said 3. So regardless, it's like, I know we were amped to see that backfield together. And we're going to talk that's probably the perfect segue. I'm sure we'll hang here for just a sec because we got some more comments to hit on, but that is the perfect segue to kind of get into the Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones talk, because it opened my eyes a little bit. And again, it's the tell of, do you want to go back 2 years? Is that the running back you're getting, or is it last year's? Right. But we'll dive into it. Like I said, let's see here. Ben Holden says you can't pay them all. Rodgers was on his decline. And if we signed Adams, then Rodgers doesn't leave. I don't know, man. To me, I don't even want to get into the Rodgers talk because I feel like I know exactly what happened with the whole darkness retreat and when everything came down the pike. And there's other people that are convinced that no, Rodgers. Some are saying Rodgers already retired. He never retired. He never said he was retiring. He said that going into that darkness retreat, he was, 90% sure or whatever it was, he was going to retire. But he said, I don't know what happened, but something changed in there he said, I see myself as retired. I see myself as continuing to play. And when he came out, he wanted to play. But when he came out, he had a slew of text messages saying, hey, they're shopping you around. After Goody done told him going into the darkness retreat, hey, you're our guy. You want to come back, come back. Now, some would look at that and go, man, that's wrong for Goody to do that. Others would say, hey, man, that's a cutthroat businessman. I know this. It seemed like it was the right damn move, boys. There's no, and you guys know I'm a Rodgers fan. Mm-hmm. Goody, again, it seems to be working out. And what does it come down to? Why has this worked out with the receiver room? Why has this worked out with Jordan Love? Because the scouts nailed it. What is Goody's specialist? He's a scout. He's been a scout his entire career. That's how he builds as a GM, right? So you got to tip your cap to him, no doubt. I don't want this to any way come off as slander to Goody. I'm just simply saying, like, we got to tell the truth. We got to tell the real story and not, just the story that always paints the Packers out to be this perfect organization, right? That's just me personally. That's how I want to try to fan here. So, all right. So Michael Redden says, I'm not worried about Love's contract. He's Goody's guy. Can't wait for that hype video. Man, I tell you, I just want it to be done, right? And we may look up too, and it's like crazy low. There's a chance, right? And you will not hear me complain, go, boy, that low ball Jordan. If he signs his name on that dotted line, I'm gonna go, all right, got a deal, right? That's how being a fan goes. All right. So all right, let's see here. Coach Lynn says Rodgers knew what he was doing. He pushed Green Bay to take a move. I think he meant make a move. And some people believe that, right? They do. I could see that, if there's one thing we know when Rodgers makes his mind up, there's no going back on it. So maybe that was the end plan. Could have been, right? I just don't feel comfortable saying that confidently. Like, I know Rodgers did this because, again, I'm not a mind reader. But all right, so there we go. Let's kind of move off here. Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead and talk about this question I got from a listener, and this came from Stinny, aka Mike. Everybody's got different YouTube names, from Twitter names, from text names, and all that. But it says, "Hi Clayton, Stinny from Oshkosh and the Fox Cities. I think Josh Jacobs is a great addition if he stays healthy. Do you think he will be more effective than the past running games we've had with Aaron Jones?" So, how do we know, right, fellas? Like, how can we say one way or another whether he's going to be better, the same, worse? The only thing we have to go off of is the past, right? And there's a lot of different factors that come into play. I know when we signed Josh Jacobs, immediately there was a portion of the fan base was like, man, he was absolute cheeks last year. And I remember there were several podcasters like, yeah, but the Raiders' offensive line was horrible. Well, you looked at our run blocking grades last year, according to PFF, we were pretty bad too, right? So there's a lot of things that go into the style of running game that we were running. Were we playing zone? Were we running split flow? Were we running duo? Were we going power G? Were we going GT power? Were we going pin and pull? You name it, right? So we're going to try to break all that down and talk a little X's and O's in that regard. But first things first, let's compare the two players. This was Aaron Jones's entire career in Green Bay. All right, if we go PFF grades, offensive grade, 78.8, 80.7. 84.8, 79.4, 82.8, 86.1, and then last year, 76.0. So if you were to say that PFF is the gospel, and you guys know we don't believe that, I'm just saying, let's play devil's advocate for a second. This screen right here would suggest he's on the downtick, right, fellas? Like that's the worst grade he's ever gotten since entering the league, according to PFF. Right, so I'm seeing that correctly, right, guys? Is that what you're seeing here too? Yep. Now, last year was his best, or the year before, 2022 was his best, right? So it's like, okay, would he rebound closer to that 86.1, or would he go even further underneath the 76 PFF grade? So Josh Jacobs, let's go to him. Look at that offensive column there. Get one last look at it for Aaron Jones, right? And now let's go Jacobs. So rookie year, 87.1, right? That is better than any year that Aaron Jones ever had. All right, that makes you feel good. Now, he dips to 76.3 in year 2. Once again, 76.0 is Aaron Jones's worst year. All right. Year 3 for Josh Jacobs, 77.7. Year 4, 91.6. And then last year, obviously, had a down year, 65.0. So when you look at it, really what these two images tell you, if you were to trust PFF, like I said, and treat it like the gospel, and we're not doing that, just playing devil's advocate, he's got a higher ceiling than Aaron Jones, but a much lower floor as well. Would you guys agree with that, or what does these numbers tell you guys here? Jacob, I'll start with you, man.
To be honest, I would love to sit here and tell you that Aaron Jones is the guy that's definitely better of the two, and we wronged him all this. One thing we haven't noticed though is look at the total snap counts with Jacobs. His best year when he was the 91.6, he had by far more snaps than any other time in his career, which is encouraging. Obviously, we talked about the fact freakish rookie year, which is great to see, and then a slow ascending. Nothing really impressive, but at like mid 70s, I'll take that. High 70s all the time. And then, of course, your breakout year, the one that everybody's going to hold up on here is that 65 flat. And it's not that I'm just going to give him a pass or anything, but yeah, the Raiders were horrible. The remnants of what was it? Josh, was it Dan? Who the guy from McDaniels was that hit? Who was just an absolute garbage fire there.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, and like it's coming out now how bad it really was. Like even Tay Adams was talking about it, and still, they did not have an offensive line. They didn't have any kind of offensive like scheme / identity this whole year. And I just think that Jacobs was definitely a victim of that. And I think, as the Packers have talked about, they love going back a year or maybe even two to see what their capabilities are. Maybe they see this as the same thing. Josh Jacobs, you see there's a lot less years there that have racked up as compared to Aaron Jones. And I do love Aaron Jones. I will love him till the day I die, but he has seemingly hit that part of his game where he peaks out and he's on the descent. Now, if you can you click back over to Jones's numbers and just quick look at the total snaps at Jacobs before you do that? He is considerably less in every one of those years, almost. And I don't think he tops him maybe in any single year. If you match him for year to year, and like there, Greg's talking about, Jones is kind of a little bit, he puts his body on the line for how small he is. He is a thumping running back, and he's good at being agile and slipping through gaps and all that kind of stuff. But it does take a wear and tear. And this is with 350 snaps, guys, 500 snaps, 376, 236. Imagine what would happen if he had 831 snaps like Jones or like Jacobs did that best part of his year. So
it's a great point. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because comments like this get you thinking in different directions when you talk about value for Josh Jacobs over, Aaron Jones and vice versa. So, yeah, I mean, Greg Rice Jones seems to have a history of getting hurt. When you look at the snap count there, Josh Jacobs, he's been kind of banged up at times too. But if you were to look at this on a per year basis, I mean, he's definitely been more consistent with total snap count than Aaron Jones, right?
Can I add to that snap count?
Absolutely.
Last year, Aaron Jones had 3 games where he had single-digit snap counts in a run situation. Josh Jacobs didn't have any below double digits.
Wow, so, that's a good stat there. I like that.
I mean, that's just durability, right? You got to be on the field to make plays. So I think we probably made the right decision again here, right? It meant to happen for a reason. We just got done talking about Tay. I think it was meant to be. We love Aaron Jones. I'm gonna miss the 1, 2, 3 swipes and a first down, but I can't wait to see Josh Jacobs run the ball, behind this offensive line, really.
Yeah. So let's dive into, let's hit these comments real quick, and then we'll get back to some other analytics here. Greg Ross said he can block too. All right. Ron Sanville says Jacobs ran into the second most loaded boxes in the NFL. Definitely a factor, man. It plays a big factor, no doubt about it. Let's see here. Coach Lynn says it's going to be interesting the run game they pair with play action pass now that we have Josh Jacobs, power duo, and tight zone more this season, ? It's funny you mentioned that. We've got the number of attempts in every specific type of run scheme, and we're going to lay those out here in a second. And the Packers actually ran a lot less zone than we thought, if I remember correctly. And it really surprised me because we're known as a wide zone boot, right? It's literally called wide zone boot scheme is what it was called. So we'll get into that here in a second. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think inside zone, probably a little bit more, maybe some power duo, a little double-double makes the most sense. United Bates says Raiders were so dysfunctional. It's so true, man. They did not have an identity. And the fact that teams can load the box on them, it does make a difference. There's no doubt.
They lost their compass, man.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go Packers rushing attempts, okay? Well, I'm sorry. Actually, I was going to share the screen here. Let's do this real quick. For people who hate PF, people are going to PFF ain't nothing. Okay, I got you. Let's go a different route here then, okay? And let's just compare them. So this is a minimum of 100 carries, okay? And let's go with yards per attempt. All right, yards per attempt last year. Aaron Jones was 12th in the league at 4.6. All right. Let me kill my camera too. See, I don't see my nose hair. So he was 12th in the league at 4.6. All right. You got to go pretty far down. Look at this. Zamir White was 21st. He had 104 carries for the Raiders. He averaged 4.3 yards a carry. So now, did they not load the box when Zamir was in? That could have been the case. But when you have a running back on the same team average significantly more per attempt than the guy we're talking about, listen, we can't cherry pick the stats. You got to take it for what it is. Zamir White, 104 carries. He averaged 4.3 yards a pop. Not bad. You got to go pretty far down here to find our boy Josh Jacobs. if I remember correctly, let's see, I think I've already passed them here.
There's our boy Tractor.
Yeah, so Josh Jacobs is 43rd on the list at 3.5 yards per carry. So, again, I would have to go watch all the tape, and I got to be real with you. I'm not going to waste my time going and watching all the Raiders tape. That would be like watching a dumpster fire, all right? But they did have a running back on their roster with at least 100 carries that averaged 4.3 yards a carry, while Josh Jacobs averaged 3.5. Now, Josh Jacobs has been very vocal. He was banged up last year as well, right? Now, let's go broken tackle plus missed tackle per attempt percentage, all right? Same thing, minimum 100 carries, okay? And let's see where these guys fall into place. Let's look for Jonesy first because I'm pretty sure he'll be higher. Aaron Jones drops to 20th at 15.5%. And it's some people that might strike them as odd because it's like, man, Aaron Jones made a lot happen with bad blocking at times. But how many times have we said it while we went back and watched the highlights from last year, guys? You see a big run from Jones, you go, Jacobs can do that, right? So there you go, 15.5%. Now, where is Jacobs? There's Zamir White, his teammate, 13.5% of the time he broke a tackle or forced a missed tackle per attempt, all right? Now, Josh Jacobs is all the way down to 34th at 12%. So you can say the loaded box, no loaded box, regardless, when it comes to breaking tackles, Zamir White was more effective than Josh Jacobs on the Raiders roster. Kind of make you think, and I don't know if Zamir White's back with them. I imagine he is. Kind of see why the Raiders went, okay, let's don't pay Josh Jacobs. Because if you're looking at strictly the statistics, Zamir White outperformed him last year in the same exact offense, right? So
you know who else they got over there, Clayton?
Who's that?
Right now, Zamir White's their number 1, and number 2 is giggity himself, Dylan Lobby.
Oh God!
And apparently they really like him over there. Weird, he's doing good in Vegas.
Yeah, where prostitution's legal, this dude's gonna do great. Giggity, right? No doubt about it. So, you guys got anything to add to this screen right here?
How far down's Dylan on this?
Oh, AJ Dillon. Yeah, you mentioned him, didn't you? So yeah,
right
AJ
there,
Dillon. When it comes now, listen, guys, AJ Dillon's a power back, right? This is horrible. 6.7% broken tackle plus missed tackle per attempt. That's hard to sugarcoat that one, ain't it?
Get those numbers up, right?
Yeah,
get those numbers up.
Nowhere to go but up, baby. I like the way you think. Now, AJ Dillon averaged 3.4 yards per attempt, and again, if you broke that down,
I think he was just a couple below Josh Jacobs. Yeah, 3 below.
Yeah, exactly.
So
now
we got 2 4-wheel drives is what we got back there.
Exactly. So let's remove that. Now, people are going, okay, that's just the end result, the statistics. Let's go and share some of the advanced metrics when it comes to SIS, okay? And I think I've got the right one up, or is that the same? That's the same thing, ain't it? All right, give me just 1 second. They're listed as the same thing in my Windows tab, so I'm going to try to get the right one up this time here. Boom. All right, so now let's get into a little bit of what SIS specializes in. Is that the same screen? What is going on? What the hell's going on? I was trying to get to maybe, it's value. I just need to switch the tab. That's my bad. All right, so when we go to value, all right, same thing, 100 attempts, everything we were just talking about. You're talking about points earned per play. This is SIS's scoring system. This is what the 33rd team uses as well. There's some people that hate PFF. Okay, we'll go to the SIS scoring system. Let's see what they said. We just showed you the yards per attempt, the broken tackle plus missed tackle percentage, right? So points earned per play, if you sort it there, obviously the positive number being the better. Let's go down. Where is Aaron Jones on this list? He is 19th at 0.051 PE per play, points earned per play. Okay. So where's Josh Jacobs? We got to go down. There's Zamir White. He's 39th at negative 0.024. And then you got to go all the way down to 45th to find Josh Jacobs at negative 0.048. All right. So that's how he falls. Now, A.J. Dillon is slightly higher than Josh Jacobs when it comes to points earned per play. All right.
Man,
now,
they've been in the same company, it seems like, on all these charts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Very similar, right? Very similar. Now, if we go EPA, all right, EPA is the expected points gained or lost by the team on the play. All right. If we go with that metric, let's see if we can find these cats. Let's see, Packers. Aaron Jones is 20th there. If we go looking for, there's Zamir White at 29th. And then, of course, you've got Josh Jacobs is 45th when it comes to that. So, again, I just wanted to throw that out there because we looked at the PFF grade. It suggests Josh Jacobs was bad last year. We looked at the yards per attempt. It suggests Josh Jacobs was bad last year. People who say, hey, look, he had to play against a loaded box. He had a teammate that suggests he was significantly better than Josh Jacobs last year, right? So you got to kind of take that for what you want. And then when you go to EPA and some of the SIS scoring, that's what you got there.
And look who else is below him, Saquon Barkley. Look who else got signed,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah. Because, again, it's like, and Saquon was banged up too, right? And that's what I'm hoping with Josh Jacobs, that it was just like, hey, one of those things that he was banged up. And here's the thing too, even with all these metrics, all these statistics, it still can be true that was a dysfunctional building, right? Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to go into work, you're not going to perform your best.
Ooh, that's the truth.
Yeah. So anything else you guys want to add to this screen before we move on and talk about what the Packers actually ran last year schematically in the run game?
I mean, I would just say that, like Emilio said, maybe take a little bit of a deep breath and look around. There's Rachaad White. He's a great back. Saquon Barkley, Eckler, Travis Etienne. There's guys there that, obviously are you'd like him to perform better, but I think running back's a hard year. A lot of it does depend on the guys around you. And with Jacobs also, he talked about how he never got utilized in the pass game, how he thought he deserved to be. And I think that may be a key component, even though he's a running back, that his high value that maybe Goody saw in him with the way the NFL is going is that he could be one of those catching the balls out of the backfield, even running actual routes, you know what I mean? Spreading them out kind of thing. So that should be another wrinkle that maybe we're not thinking about.
Yeah. Emilio, anything, Bob?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I see Bijan up there, but from what I watched in the Falcons game and him only being 9 spots back, I'm totally fine with Josh Jacobs being on our team.
Got it. All right. I am too, man. I'm thinking that you may not get the 2022 version, but I think you're going to get some in between, probably upper 70s on PFF, get him back over 4 yards a carry, maybe 4.3. And if he's effective in the passing game, the fact that he's, what was he, $5 or $7 million against the cap this year, I think everything's going to be just fine.
And maybe he won't be that, because maybe he was the bruiser or having to be used as the bruiser. Like I said, he didn't have any single digit carry games. He got a lot of touches. So maybe now having AJ Dillon to take some of the downhills off of his play, or, throwing in Lloyd to give him another breather that he can be used, more to an advantage.
Right. So let's talk about the running game scheme that Matt LaFleur ran last year. If you guys could go back to the first half of the season, you guys remember we had Mike Wall on, and what was the thing I was complaining about the most? Was this split flow, split zone is not working. It's not fooling anyone. Why don't we just go play straight up inside zone? Now, Mike Wall said, Clayton, they're not even good at that right now. So it wasn't just PFF. It's funny, too, because PFF suggested the run blocking was booty cheeks for the Packers. Mike Wall absolutely despises PFF, and he was saying the run blocking was booty cheeks, too. So now that's a former offensive lineman. So, even though you disagree how you're getting to the same point, you both got to the same point, that the run blocking was just off, right? So when it comes to rushing attempts, first and foremost, we need to accept the fact that Matt LaFleur's offense is a pass-heavy offense, all right? Now, here's what I mean by that. You guys go back to the Aaron Rodgers days. It was, we need to lean on the run more. This is Rodgers changing the play. Rodgers just wants to play hero ball, blah, 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 blah. Rodgers is gone now. Guys, we ran the ball 22nd most in the league last year. All right. That's the reality. Mr. Ayahuasca is gone, right? Darkness retreats out of the building now. Jordan Love's the quarterback. And we were a pass-heavy team. That's the reality. I didn't have time to get into all the drops, but we ran deep drop. It was in the top 10. It might have been top 5 that we ran the 10th most or higher deep drops, which means 5-step drops. Right. So it was a deep drop passing game. We ran play action way less than I actually thought we did. But let's get into the running game itself, all right? So here is the zone run attempts, all right? This is the teams and how many attempts they had running a zone run scheme. The Packers came 23rd on the list. They had 216 rushing attempts while running zone run, okay? That surprised me. And again, I know we ran a whole lot of different run schemes last year. We ran pretty much everything under the sun, and we're going to hit them all here in a second. But what I'm trying to do is give you guys kind of a snapshot of here's what the Packers actually did last year in the running game, right? It's just like on defense. Everybody was saying, this damn quarters defense, it's horrible. We didn't play quarters. We played single high, 5th most in the league, right? That's the truth. So same thing with the running game. We were a pass-heavy team, and we only ran zone run 216 snaps. That was 23rd most in the league. Now, split zone was our 2nd most that we ran. Check this out. We ran 63 attempts out of split zone, all right, or what some call split flow. That's what I was frustrated about early in the season. I was getting so angry because it's like, yes, you could get a big game, but there were so many times that it got blew up in the backfield because we were trying to get too cute with split flow. We ran it 4th most in the league. The only other teams that ran more split zone or split flow were the Colts, the Dolphins, and the Rams. They ran it 87 attempts, 85 attempts, 74 attempts, and we had 63 attempts out of split zone. Now, I'm going to take this second to explain what I mean by split zone or split flow real quick, because some people are going, what in the hell are you talking about, Clayton? So let me try to draw it up for you here. What I've got here is an ace 12 look, okay, a 12 ace look. What I mean by 12, if you look at the screen, there's your U, there's your Y attached, okay? So this is 1 running back, your T, and 2 tight end sets, which is what we like to run a lot when we run the football if we're not running out of 11 personnel. So when we run a split flow, notice we got the U off. Sometimes they will actually – let me get rid of that. Sometimes we will actually kick him a little bit further in and play kind of a wing. Most of the time he's just off. And what will happen sometimes is they'll do a little cheat motion there, right? They'll just right before the ball snapped, they'll do a little cheat motion out here, and then the ball snapped. And with split flow, even if you didn't do cheat motion, what I'm going to do is actually just slide the U back real quick, all right, like right in here, kind of on that wing or that half wing look.
Yep.
This is what split flow is. These linebackers, they're keying in on anything that the offensive line and the running backs are going to tip their hand with to try to get in the backfield and stop a run, okay? So with split zone or split flow, what happens is you get this U, or in some cases it's an H-back, they block all the way across the line of scrimmage. Okay, so when the ball snapped, what do we call that, Jacob? Remember what that block's called?
Sift.
That's called a sift block. We talked about it at nauseum. So that's a sift. Now, some people are going, what the hell is he going over there if the running play is designed to go left, right? Now, understand that split zone is what it sounds like. It's actually a zone run, but it's a split flow scheme, okay? So it is a form of zone run. What you do with the rest of the blockers is they block down. Right. Now it's best to start to the flow side. All right. So let me take that off. And the Y is going to completely ignore this left end. And he's looking to get up here on this sand. All right.
Yeah.
The right tackle is blocking on the D tackle. The guard may double him, right? Double the D tackle on his way to the mic. The center will help double here. The left guard will help double that 3 or even the 1 tech, whatever they're playing on that side. And then he's looking to get to the wheel, while the left tackle is blocking the end. So you got a hat on a hat, and what's happening is you're allowing the left end to come free, and as he comes screaming off the edge, the sift block is designed to pick it up. The problem is we were cheeks at blocking that last year because we had a bunch of rookie tight ends. The first half of the season, I should say, we were cheeks at it. But that's what we mean by split zone or split flow. Does that make sense, fellas?
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely.
It's a real simple concept. Go ahead.
No, I like that because maybe, you have an all-star left end there that you're trying to get away from, but you don't also want to waste 2 blockers on them. Let's just try to run it away from them. Shut down corner. We got a shut down end. We're going to try to split flow away from them with a little sift block. And all you need to do is get a piece of them. But like you said, we had rookie tight ends that weren't even making contact, felt like.
Yeah. Coach Lynn in the chat said the Giants talked about Jacobs a bit on Hard Knocks, talking about the off-season version. It was interesting to see what other GMs thought about him. If you don't care, Coach, I haven't watched the second episode yet. I think that's probably what you're referring to. Put in the chat, kind of what was your general takeaway of what GMs thought about Jacobs on the open market? Because I'm interested to hear that.
But also the fact that like they didn't think that there was a market for Saquon. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
but then Jacobs was there too as well. Like, how did they not see that coming?
Right. And Michael Lombardi's done a good job talking about like the identity of your team, right? And and how they didn't, I don't know if I necessarily buy into the whole identity of a team argument, to be honest with you. I'm kind of like, who gives a crap, man? You're out there to win games. But obviously a former GM believes that, then it's something that's real, right? So So again, we drew that up because split zone, we ran fourth most in the league. All right. That's why we wanted to mention that. Now, backside puller. If we had a backside puller attempt, all right, the Packers ran that 15th most. So again, if you go back to zone run attempts, 23rd most, backside puller attempts, 15th most. Boys, this feels like we're becoming more of a power team, does it not?
Right.
Like it's interesting to see how LaFleur is kind of adapting.
I think it's also I don't know who was saying it, but that Sean McVay is kind of switched from being a zone to more of maybe say gap, but maybe Matt's transition was, hey, I like a little bit more pull, maybe a little less gap, a little less zone, and sort of blend it. But I like that we're getting the big guys moving and leading into that hole.
Absolutely. So when we talk backside puller attempts, right, this is what we mean by that. If the run side, and we're not going to draw the entire play out, but if the run side is right, okay, then backside puller, and some people are going, duh, I know I got it, but just want to explain it for those who may not know. Backside puller is the backside of the play. You will have a guard, at least a guard pulling as a lead blocker, okay? And these are gap runs. These aren't zone runs. They're designed for a specific gap. That's the difference between gap and zone, if that makes sense. So when we say backside puller, that's what we're talking about there. And the Packers, once again, they ran it 15th most in the league for 56 attempts. Now, let's talk about duo. The next most run scheme for the Packers was duo. And we've talked about this, talking about it being double-double, right? And again, it's vertical power. So you're not where we showed you on this screen right here. Drop this down. You see how the guard is skipping at least one gap, pulling at least one gap. With duo, they would not pull a gap, but you're trying to get the same vertical displacement as you would with this type of play. With duo, you're going double-double. You're doubling to the second level, essentially. It's very hard to read whether or not a duo is duo or inside zone run. And what I mean by that, like this specific play here, what you may or may not have is with duo, you're going to have at least two double team blocks. So in this case, it might be these two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way that works is maybe this guy's just looking to seal off, right? Maybe he's looking to get out here and seal. But what's designed to do is at the point of attack, one of these guys, they'll help double, and then they break off and get to – screw that up. They break off, if I can get it right here. They'll hit that and then break off and get to the next level. Like this right tackle would help with this left end and then break off and get to the Sam. That's what you're talking about with duo or double-double. It's the same type approach as power where it's a gap-specific run. It looks a lot like zone, but you're looking to get a double team and off that double team to the next level. So it's typically two double teams. Mike Wall referred to it as double-double. Most people refer to it as duo. So again, with duo attempts, we ran it 14th most in the league with 37 attempts. That makes sense?
Yep.
All right. Up next is 2+ pullers. All right. We ran it 11th most in the league. So when we pulled one backside puller, right, we did that 15th most. With 2+ pullers, we did that 11th most in the league. That's what I mean by it's only 14 attempts, but you gotta compare it across the league. We're starting to get into the top half of the league in attempts at pulling plays as opposed to insides or just zone run altogether, which again we were 23rd. So when we're talking about two, go ahead. I'm sorry. Thought somebody was going to say something. No. Okay. So with two pullers, essentially, that's when you hear us refer to it as GT power, right? With GT power, it may be the guard, right? And it could even be the center, right? But regardless, you got two pullers. We've seen that with Josh Myers a couple times. Most of the time with GT, it's guard and tackle is pulling. Okay.
Here and run the ball into the alley.
Got it. You got it, man. So again, when we ran 2+ pullers, 11th most in the league, only 14 attempts. But again, you got to compare it across the league. All right. And then the thing we ran the least amount was.
Can I ask you a quick question, Clayton? Real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah.
About the double pullers. Is that a more typical kind of offensive line scheme for when you have like kind of the old school halfback counter play where they kind of over pursue to one side and then they pull to the other? Is that
you can get a little counter with it for sure. What Jacob means there too is the running back will actually start in one direction and then bounce back, right? And what you're doing, remember what we said with split flow? You get these backers peeking into the backfield. When they see you start that way, if they're looking at you as opposed to the offensive line, then they're going to key in on you. And next thing you know, you're out the back.
Especially say if you bring the Z on a jet motion across too, drag their eye. Oh, the running back's going with it.
Yep, right there, right. You get all that eye candy. They're going, which way did he go, boss? Which way did he go? So that's
and the yard per carry on that. We were almost 6 yards of carry on double pullers. Not like we needed to use it a lot, only 14, 15 times, but 6 yards a pop.
It's huge.
Maybe that's something we need to add into the repertoire a little more, maybe 30 times next year.
Yeah, what you're talking about there, 5.9 a carry. That's Jacob. I think that's why Matt LaFleur is looking at him going, "Hell, boys, this is working. Maybe we should do this instead of zone."
Yeah. You guys get this better. Let's make it happen, right? I mean, if it works for this team, let's go.
Yeah. I'm telling you though, man, the SIF's coming back because Jacob's boy Tyler Davis is healthy.
Maybe Ben Sims will be siffing people out.
There we go.
All right, so the last one we're going to talk about here is front side puller attempts. All right, front side puller attempts. Now, they don't specify, but I'm pretty sure this is pin and pull. You'll hear pin and pull mentioned all the time. We like to run a little toss crack and a toss pin and pull all the time. Pin and pull is really simple, but they're referring to it as front side puller attempts. This is what they mean by front side puller attempts. So let's say we're going to just go with a run right, a wide zone right run, right? Which it's not going to be zone, but we're going kind of a wide run. Maybe it's a B to C or what have you. That's probably a little too wide. Let's say we're going to kind of attack this area here. All right. When you do that and you got a front side puller, the reason it's called pin and pull, in this play here, what we're going to do is we're going to pull the center and the guard. The center is considered front side as well. Anything not backside is considered front side. So the center is kind of neutral, but we'll include him in on this play. With a pin and pull, the way it works is the top priority is guard, right? Will pull, center will pull, and look to get in here, right? Now, why do they call it pin and pull? Because these guys will block down, right? They'll block down. They'll try to pin the defense while you've got two pulling on the front side. That's what you're referring to as pin and pull. We like to run it a lot out of the gun with that little toss play.
I was just going to say that, Clayton, the one out of the gun where, got sidecar right there. And then even maybe where just the right tackle swings out because you're so far out, it's kind of the one-hand pitch, get them way outside. We saw Aaron Jones, run that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, if we take a peek at that, front side pullers, we ran it 10th most in the league, and we averaged 5.3 yards a carry.
And look at the Eagles at top, though. 46 attempts, 6 yards a carry, running something like that.
And, again, look at this play that we just talked about. Who's pulling? The center's pulling, right?
Yep.
Who was their center for so long?
Right. Kelsey.
Absolute stud, right? When the game's on the line, think player, not play. That doesn't just mean the guy with the ball in his hand. That means get your best players in to be effective on that specific play.
Because I do remember him running way down the field blocking on those some of those balls for sure.
Are you guys trying to say that you should maybe keep your eye off the ball?
Oh, I see what you did there. Which, by the way, United Baits, thank you, sir. We got the books in the mail today. We're going to give those away to lucky Patreon members. So if you guys are interested in joining the Patreon group, we do giveaways all the time. It's a way for you guys to support the stream, and we also give back to you all. You can click on the link in the video description here. You'll be able to find it, where you can just go to patreon.com and search for Packer Fan Total Access. So, great drop there, Jacob. You're becoming a professional. All right, so quick recap. I want to talk about the yards per attempt. Emilio kind of hit on it there a little bit. Let's see how successful we were. All right. So on the year, once again, we had the 22nd most rushing attempts. All right. So that really surprised me. I know we didn't run the ball as much, but we are becoming a pass-heavy offense. There's no doubt about it. When it comes to zone run attempts, oh, by the way, with those attempts, we averaged 4.3 yards a carry or 112.1 yards per game. By the way, when I went and sorted this out by rushing, I had to filter out all the wide receivers. Guess who led the league in yards per attempt in rushing?
Bo Melton or
Jaden
Reed?
Jaden Reed did. It was like 11.6 or something. Wild, man. Absolutely wild. So might be a way to get Bo Melton in the lineup a little bit more too, and just use Jaden Reed, a little more as a what I'd like to see them do is come out in an empty set where there's no running backs on the field, or have Josh Jacobs flexed out. They go ahead and adjust and then motion Jaden Reed into the backfield. That would be wild because you probably get a backer walking out on Jacobs if they're in man coverage. And now you're talking about getting offensive linemen displaced and getting to the second level and being able to put a hat on a safety as opposed to a linebacker. That's exciting. Go ahead.
Right. Because I would, when we went 5 wide back in the day with actually 5 wide receivers, why can't we bring that back? And like you're saying, put Jaden Reed, everybody spread out. Jaden Reed's the one that comes into the backfield, or Bo Melton's the one that comes in the backfield. We get a mismatch. They go into, maybe they go into nickel or quarter or dime or something. And hey, we get a numbers game and a weight game.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so again, we have 4.3 yards per attempt. Now let's break it down, yards per attempt on each running style. Zone run, we averaged only 3.5 yards per attempt. Now, remember what Mike Wall said? Clayton, they can't even block zone right now, right? He was, boom, there you go. 3.5 is horrible for zone run, okay? Now, split zone. Why were we running so much split zone? We went from 3.5 yards per attempt in zone, and it jumped to 4.9 yards in split zone by the end of the year. If you looked at the first half, and I didn't want to take the time to filter out those games, it was probably well under 4. But it started working later in the year. Why? Because these young tight ends finally got used to it. You went away from it, and then you came back to it, right? So right now, split zone is our most effective at 4.9 yards per attempt. Backside puller attempts. The Packers average 4 yards per carry. So the leader right now is still split zone attempts. Duo. The Packers average 4.4 yards per attempt. Once again, split flow, 4.9. It's still leading, but duo was the second most effective run scheme that we ran. 2+ puller attempts. Packers come in at 5.9 yards per attempt. So we were most effective. Far fewer snaps at only 14, but we were way more effective with 2+ puller attempts. And if we went pin and pull front side puller, and it doesn't have to be pin and pull, but most of the time that's what it is, 5.3 yards per attempt. So we hit timeout. What do we think they should do from an effectiveness standpoint this year? Probably want to do a little more pulling than inside zone.
Get a lead blocker.
Yeah. So I don't know if all that makes sense. Hopefully we were able to articulate it well enough for everyone on the podcast, but I thought it would be important. As I started digging, I'm like, man, we just need to kind of talk about the different styles of run and again, listen, I may be incorrect on some of this. There may be people in the chat going, no, Clayton, you got that wrong. That's totally cool. We can agree to disagree. I'm not here to have a pissing contest. This is the best way I understand run scheme. If you know a former player, lean on them. If you know a former coach, lean on them. I'm always going to defer to Coach Lynn. Coach Lynn knows more about football than me, right? So that's to the best of my knowledge how everything kind of shakes out. And we're all still learning as we go. So anything you guys want to hit on before we wrap up? Any parting thoughts, anything at all? Jacob, you got anything for us, man?
Honestly, no. It's just crazy that we're getting closer and closer to the year. And honestly, in the chat, guys, like don't feel like Clayton. We just talked about how advanced Coach Len is, where Clayton is. We get guys like Mike Wall on here. We know Emilio knows how to talk ball. Tim knows this stuff. I am probably way below those guys, and I know a decent amount about stuff, concepts, and that. So don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you think it's too stupid or whatever. Just really to clarify certain things. Every time I hop on the podcast, I learn a ton of stuff. I have to be refreshed with certain things like the duo and zone, and there's so much terminology. It's easy to just kind of pretend like you get it and keep your head down, but like ask questions, because it's how the whole point of the podcast was to get everybody, especially in the off season. That's the biggest part. Like right now, I am more proud of our podcast, and not to toot our own horns, but I listen. If there's even a new podcast from any of the other major Packers guys, it is so not doing stuff. So I'm just saying, you guys are tuning in. We want to learn together, ask the questions, get involved, join the chat, do all that kind of stuff, to the Patreon, get involved in the giveaways. We're going to have a ton of fun this year. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a blast. And Jacob, you like you said, nobody's the grand poobah here. We're all learning together. And that's what I love about the chat is they're constantly firing stuff in, going, I didn't look at it from that angle. Yeah, I tell people all the time, man, I am wrong all the time. You don't believe me? Ask my wife. I am wrong all the time. Emilio, you like to use your people's accent there. Man.
Yeah, all the time. But all I got to say.
Just here to tell you, Pack is back.
You heard it from a fan.
You know what I'm saying? So,
I got to get that edited. We got to get the you heard it from a fan in there, man.
Yeah,
that's the best part.
Definitely.
So Coach Lynn did hit on that, right? He said they said he was expensive, but they liked him if they got the 2022 version of him. So there you go. And that's the crap.
But he's expensive, but they wouldn't pay Saquon $12 million.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because like Josh Jacobs, the way his is structured, it was $12 million for 1 year essentially. People are going, no, it's a 4-year deal. The guarantee is up after $12 million. Now he's only $5 million, I think $5 to $7 million against the cap, depending on incentives and stuff this year. Which means if you were to cut bait next year, you'd be on the hook for $7 million cap penalty, and then you're clear of that contract. I think Saquon got more guaranteed money, Emilio. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure, but the injuries was an issue there too. I don't feel like if you were to look at Saquon's injury history and Josh Jacobs' injury history, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like Josh Jacobs has a better injury history than Saquon. You know what I mean?
Sure. I definitely think you're right on that.
But he does have, Saquon does have a lot more explosion. There's no doubt. And that's probably why it's kind of like Bo Jackson. If you guys have never read up on Bo Jackson, that dude was just unbelievable. But he literally blew his hip out, not because a defender hit him, because he was breaking a tackle and he had so much explosion in his legs, he literally destroyed his hip.
That's crazy. Wild. I mean, it takes over 500 pounds to tear your ACL. So, like, you did the amount of pressure and explosion they put on their body and joints all the time. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get out of here, boys. Appreciate y'all's time, man. This was a lot of fun. Hopefully we all learned something. I know I learned a ton just deep diving those analytics and stuff. There's many things I was like, man, I was kind of thought I seen something different this year, right? So that's why it's the best time to do it this time of year. You never stop learning, man. And then when the football start flying in training camp, you got plenty to talk about. Why not use this time to study? And that's why we're going to give those books away, like I said, with Bates. Giving it up. What we're going to do, camp, they kind of report on the 17th, I believe. The first day of camp, why don't we do a giveaway? All right.
Yep.
So first day of camp.
It's 5 days away.
Yeah, we're about
65%.
65%. That's what we So let's give away a take your eye off the ball first. And then when we get into like maybe the first preseason game, we'll give away that awesome picture of Bart Starr, Aaron Rodgers, and Brett Favre together. All right,
nice.
that Mr. Larry donated. And then we got a couple other things we're going to give away as well. We got some jerseys, stuff like that. But, let's do that. On the 17th, we're going to give a copy of Take Your Eye Off the Ball away. So anyone who wants to get yourself into that contest, all you got to do is be, a contributor at one of those 3 tiers that we have over at Patreon. And, again, it's just a way for us to give back to y'all, always supporting the channel. So, with that being said, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. We will see you guys and gals tomorrow night. No morning show. I got to run to Knoxville. I'll be down there in Emilio's neck of the woods. But I should be back in time to do the evening show. So we'll see you guys and gals 7 p.m. Central tomorrow night. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack, go.